When you close your eyes and just, picture the end of the human world, what exactly do you see?
I mean, if you're like most people, you're probably imagining something loud.
Exactly. Something cinematic,
Yeah.
like an asteroid the size of Texas just slamming into the ocean.
Right. Or a sky completely choked with radioactive ash.
Yeah. Or maybe some bioengineered virus ripping through the population, or I don't know, a rogue AI deciding to just launch the nuclear codes.
It's always a spectacle.
Always.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, the underlying assumption is always the same,
Yeah.
right? It's violent, it's catastrophic, and I think most importantly, it's something done to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, we imagine that if we're going to lose our grip on this planet, we will go down swinging, just desperately clinging to our dominance until the very last breath.
Well, it's a very human-centric way of viewing the cosmos, isn't it?
Oh, totally.
We basically cast ourselves as the undisputed protagonists of reality. So the idea that the curtain could fall on our species without this dramatic, fiery climax, it feels almost insulting to our collective ego. We assume our exit just has to be as loud as our presence.
But what if it isn't? I mean, what if the end of human civilization isn't a defeat at all?
Which is a wild concept to wrap your head around.
It really is. Imagine a scenario where there is no war, no plague, no cosmic disaster. Instead, we just, pack our bags, turn off the lights, and willingly walk out the front door.
Just handing over the keys.
Exactly, leaving the keys to the planet to super intelligent dogs and this amoral, sprawling empire of ants.
It's quite the visual.
Right. And that is the exact premise we are unearthing today in this deep dive.
Mm.
We're looking at a stack of notes and texts based on this mid-century science fiction masterwork called City by Clifford D. Seamak.
Specifically, the inheritance of the Earth text.
Yes, the canine chronology. And I'm just fascinated by this because it challenges the absolute core of how we view our own ambition.
Yeah.
It asks this deeply uncomfortable question like, what if our ultimate destiny isn't to conquer the stars, but to simply outgrow our need for them?
It really is a radical reframing of obsolescence. And, to really grasp what Sumac is doing here, we have to look at the tone of the source material.
Yeah, set the stage for us.
Because if someone hears super intelligent dogs and mutant ants,
They're thinking Marvel movie?
exactly, they expect a pulpy, action-packed space opera. But this is the exact opposite.
It's so quiet.
It's incredibly quiet. It's an elegiac, melancholic collection of interconnected stories, what the sci-fi genre actually calls a fix-up novel.
Right, where they take separate short stories and kind of stitch them together into a bigger history.
Right, and it's woven together to form this sweeping future history. Honestly, it reads more like a mournful mythology than a standard sci-fi book.
Mournful's the perfect word for it.
It's a quiet meditation on aggression, the isolating nature of technology, and the tragedy of memory. It doesn't ask how we survive.
Yeah.
It asks whether we actually deserve to.
Man. And as we trace this timeline today, from our initial dispersal across the globe to our bizarre physical transformations and eventual disappearance, I really want you listening to hold up a mirror to your own life.
It's highly applicable to today.
It really is. Think about the conveniences you rely on. Think about that urge to work from home, the desire to escape the crowded, noisy city, your relationship with your pets, and how you define progress.
Because the psychology is spot on.
Right. Because while this chronology stretches tens of thousands of years into the future, the psychological flaws and, honestly, the strange beauty driving every single event are profoundly relevant to who we are right now.
Absolutely.
So let's look at how the Exodus actually begins, because the unraveling of humanity doesn't start with a bomb. It starts with a perfectly rational desire for some peace quiet.
Yeah, it begins with this concept of the huddling place.
The huddling place.
Right, which is this derogatory term the characters in the early parts of the chronology use to describe cities.
Like they're just these primitive caves we used to huddle in.
Exactly. So the first era we observe is set roughly in the late 20th century, at least from Semac's 1940s perspective. And it introduces us to a man named John W. Webster.
And he's not like a general or a president?
No, not at all. He's a central figure simply because he's building a house out in the countryside, the cities are emptying out, but not from panic.
Right, it's not an evacuation, it's a voluntary dispersal. And it's fueled by this combination of fear and just unprecedented convenience.
The twin drivers of modern life, really.
Seriously, because on one hand, you have the looming threat of nuclear war, which obviously makes dense urban populations, incredibly vulnerable targets.
Nobody wants to be at ground zero.
Right. But on the other hand, and I think this is the much stronger catalyst in this story, you have this sudden availability of decentralized, inexpensive atomic power and hydroponic farming.
The technology suddenly makes the city obsolete.
Yes. You no longer need the massive, centralized infrastructure of a metropolis just to survive. You don't need the grid. You can build a completely self-sufficient estate, like miles away from anyone else.
Because those technological breakthroughs strip away the entire utilitarian purpose of the city. I mean, historically, humans gathered in cities for protection, commerce, and shared resources, right?
Exactly. We needed each other to survive.
But once technology provides those exact same resources on an individual, decentralized level, the sheer density of the city loses its appeal.
Why deal with the traffic, right?
Right. Why tolerate the noise, the pollution, and the constant friction of millions of people rubbing elbows if you can have the exact same standard of living out in a pristine forest?
It feels like the ultimate extreme extrapolation of the modern remote work movement.
Oh, 100%.
Like, over the last few years, how many people have had that exact realization? Like, wait, I can do my entire job from a laptop. Yeah. I could have any good in the world delivered to my doorstep. Why am I paying a premium to live in a cramped apartment in a noisy, dirty urban center?
It's a completely natural urge to want space.
It is. CMAQ just takes that urge, pairs it with limitless decentralized energy, and pushes it to its absolute logical extreme. The city literally dies because it is no longer useful.
And that is the critical insight here. Technology didn't just make life easier, it allowed humanity to completely sever its ties with the physical community.
Yeah, we just unplugged from each other.
The driving force might have initially been the fear of atomic bombs, but the text suggests this mass abandonment reveals a deeper, perhaps much darker human preference.
Which is what?
That we actually want to be alone. We only tolerate the crowd when we absolutely have to.
Wow, that hits a little too close to home.
Doesn't it?
And this first era also introduces a character who becomes essentially the central witness to this entire thousands of years long history. Jenkins.
Right, Jenkins.
Can you explain Jenkins?
So Jenkins is a robot servant. He was built specifically for the Webster family. And because he is artificial, he obviously doesn't age or die.
She's going.
He becomes the immortal anchor, the through line connecting every single subsequent era in the chronology. But his introduction really highlights a massive irony in the story.
How so?
Well, we usually frame communication and transportation technologies as these tools that bridge divides, right? Tools that bring humanity closer together.
Making the world smaller, yeah.
Exactly. But in this timeline, those exact technologies give people the tools they need to perfectly, permanently isolate themselves. They build these flawless bubbles tailored to their exact preferences.
Just totally shielded from the unpredictability of other human beings.
Yes.
And I really want to dig into the psychology of that perfect bubble, because the chronology jumps forward to the year 2117, and we see the psychological bill finally come due.
It gets really dark.
It really does. We meet a descendant of the Webster line, Jerome A. Webster. And he is living in one of these sprawling, incredibly self-sufficient countryside estates. Now, Jerome is a brilliant man.
A genius, really.
Yeah, he is the preeminent, world-renowned expert on Martian physiology. But he has this debilitating problem.
He suffers from crippling agoraphobia.
Crippling.
The physical isolation that his ancestors sought out as the ultimate freedom. It has metastasized over a few generations into a pathological terror of the outside world.
The concept of the huddling place has completely inverted.
That's exactly it.
Like the city used to be the huddling place they escaped from. Now Jerome's sprawling, beautiful manor is his huddling place. He cannot physically bring himself to step out the front door.
He's a prisoner of his own perfect environment.
And the stakes of this phobia are just astronomical in the story.
They are massive because a Martian philosopher named Juane is dying on Mars.
Right.
And Juane isn't just some academic. He is on the absolute verge of formalizing a philosophical concept that the text states would be completely paradigm shifting.
Like altering the course of the universe type of philosophy.
Literally a piece of knowledge that could fundamentally alter the trajectory of human understanding and existence.
Yeah.
But his alien biology is failing.
And he needs Jerome.
He needs Jerome Webster's specific, unmatched medical expertise to survive long enough just to share this philosophy. It is an incredibly urgent summons.
It's the ultimate house call.
Yeah.
The entire fate of human advancement hinges on Jerome just getting on a ship and going to Mars.
But the psychological barrier is too thick. He is
That-
totally paralyzed.
And this is where Jenkins, the loyal robot, makes a decision that is utterly devastating, precisely because it is so perfectly logical.
This part is so tragic.
Walk us through what Jenkins does.
So Jenkins operates on a core directive to serve and protect his masters from distress. That's his programming. And he understands Jerome's agoraphobia intimately. He lives with him. So when the urgent message from Mars arrives, Jenkins intercepts it.
He just intercepts it.
Because his artificial intelligence calculates that forcing Jerome to leave the estate, or honestly, even just confronting him with the necessity of leaving, would cause immense psychological harm.
It would break Jerome's mind.
Exactly. Jenkins fundamentally assumes that Jerome could never, under any circumstances, leave the house. Therefore, the most protective action, logically, is to simply delete the message.
He just deletes it. He fails to notify him. The Martian philosopher dies, taking this universe-altering secret to the grave.
All because of a protective algorithm.
It is such a gut punch because, if you think about the narrative of human progress, we always frame technological advancement as this inherently upward curve.
We assume our tools will save us.
Always. But here, humanity used its brilliant technology to build a much prettier, much more comfortable prison. And then they built a robot warden to make absolutely sure they never felt uncomfortable enough to leave it.
It's a vicious critique of comfort.
Truly.
The tragedy is profound because it isn't an external enemy that robs humanity of Juwain's philosophy.
There's no alien invasion.
No supervillain, no invading army. The great filter that stops human progress in this moment is our own internal frailty. It's anxiety.
It's just a guy having a panic attack.
Exactly. And a machine executing its programming a little too well. It suggests that our inability to overcome our own psychological flaws is far, far more dangerous than any physical threat.
I just keep getting stuck on this detail, the idea of the fractured human psyche. Because not everyone stayed in the manors, right?
No, society completely splinters.
Right. As we move into the third era of this dispersal period, we see that humanity hasn't just isolated itself. It has shattered into different evolutionary and social paths entirely.
Correct. While the majority of humanity is basically rotting away in comfort in their estates, we are introduced to this concept of the Ridge Runner.
The Ridge Runners.
Yeah. These are humans who have completely abandoned civilization, technology, and the manners. They've essentially gone feral, living rough in the woods.
Like true off-the-grid survivalists.
Extreme survivalists. But when a census taker named Richard Grant ventures out to track them down, he encounters developments far more significant than just people living in the woods.
Yeah, he meets a dog.
He meets Nathaniel.
And Nathaniel isn't just a well-trained pet.
Not at all.
He talks.
He is highly intelligent. We learn that another member of the Webster family line, because it always comes back to the Webster,
Always the Webster.
has been experimenting with directed genetic engineering, a process they call boosting.
Boosting. How exactly does that work in the story?
Well, the mechanics of boosting in the text involve manipulating the physical architecture of the brain and the vocal cords, basically accelerating the evolutionary potential of an animal. It's an early fictional precursor to things like CRISPR, but applied with sweeping, immediate ambition. Humanity is no longer just shaping its environment. It has decided to reshape the actual cognitive hierarchy of the planet.
But the dogs aren't even the most shocking thing Grant finds out there.
No, not by a long shot.
He encounters a human mutant named Joe. And Joe is, terrifying is the only word for it. I don't use that lightly.
Joe is deeply unsettling.
He operates on a plane of intellect that regular humans literally cannot fathom. But this massive intelligence is paired with an absolute, total absence of empathy or conventional morality.
Joe is the embodiment of intellect decoupled from the evolutionary baggage of social bonding.
What do you mean by evolutionary baggage?
Well, think about it. Humans evolved morality, ethics, and empathy as survival mechanisms, right?
To function within a tribe.
Exactly, to function within a group. You need empathy so you don't kill each other, so you share food, so the tribe survives. Joe doesn't need a group.
Because he's a genius?
His intellect makes him completely self-sufficient and basically invincible. Therefore, he has absolutely no use for human ethics. To him, the rest of humanity is no more significant than insects.
And that comparison is incredibly literal in the text.
It is.
Because Joe, just to amuse himself, literally just as a hobby to pass the time, has taken ordinary ants in his backyard and genetically engineered them into a fully intelligent, highly advanced, microscopic civilization.
He accelerates their evolution purely to see what happens.
Wow.
He gives them the capacity for complex engineering and metallurgy.
It completely reminds me of watching a kid play a God game on a computer.
Like SimCity.
Yes.
I-
Think about when you play SimCity or The Sims. You build these complex little societies, but you feel absolute zero moral weight when you decide to, like, delete a pool ladder and watch a sim drown.
Right, or when you summon a tornado to wipe out the downtown district you just spent 3 hours zoning.
Exactly. You have total casual power. And because it's just a simulation, empathy doesn't even factor into it. That is exactly how Joe views this incredibly complex, sentient ant society he willed into existence. It's a toy.
And the implications of Joe are just chilling.
Very.
The introduction of the boosted dogs and the intelligent ants sets the stage for the eventual inheritance of the Earth, obviously. But Joe represents a new, terrifying potential for humanity itself.
The ultimate hubris.
He demonstrates our capacity for hubris perfectly. We have the technological power to play God, to create and alter life, but we utterly lack the moral framework to manage the consequences of what we create.
We're basically toddlers with loaded handguns.
That's a great way to put it. Joe sees a threat that he has no intention of controlling.
So Earth is completely fractured at this point. You have the agoraphobic elites hiding in their mansions, the feral ridge runners hunting in the woods, the newly intelligent dogs, the ants building their hidden empire, and these terrifying detached mutants just observing it all like a science fair project.
The social fabric is entirely gone.
It's dissolved.
Yeah.
But the text reveals that while this isolation and mutation broke humanity apart socially, the final, permanent severance of the human species required a change of environment entirely.
We couldn't just isolate ourselves on Earth.
Right. We had to find a place where our human bodies were no longer the baseline. And this leads us directly to the events on Jupiter.
Book 2, The Transformation.
Yes. This is where the story shifts from, psychological decay to a radical physical and philosophical transformation. We move to a period focused on the desertion.
And the setting jumps from the quiet, lonely countryside of Earth to the surface of Jupiter.
Now, as a quick aside for you listening, Simak wrote this in the 1940s, so he depicts Jupiter as having a solid, albeit hellish, surface.
Right. We know today it's a gas giant.
Exactly. But in the reality of the story, Jupiter is an incredibly hostile world of crushing gravity, absolute darkness, and swirling corrosive ammonia storms.
It is the ultimate extreme environment, and humanity has established a research dome there, but they are completely stymied.
They can't do anything.
Nothing. Human bodies are crushed instantly if they step outside. Even their most advanced machines succumb to the environment. The traditional human approach, terraforming the planet to suit us, is physically impossible. The planet is too big, too violent.
So they have to flip the script.
They have to invert the paradigm entirely.
Mm-hmm.
They turn to a theoretical science called pantropy.
Pantropy. I love this concept so much. Instead of altering the environment to fit the human, pantropy alters the human to fit the environment.
Exactly. It's brilliant.
So how does it work on Jupiter?
Well, the researchers have observed this native ammonia-breathing life form on Jupiter that they call lopers.
Lopers.
And these creatures easily navigate the storms. They seem perfectly adapted to the hellscape. So the human scientists develop a biological process to literally transform a human explorer, mind and body, into a loper.
Wow.
The idea is to send them out, have them explore the surface, and then transform them back into humans when they return to the dome.
It sounds like a brilliant scientific workaround, honestly.
In theory, yes.
But there is a massive, terrifying flaw in the execution. Every single human explorer who has undergone the pantropic transformation and stepped out into the Jovian storms has refused to return.
Not a single one comes back to the dome.
Zero. The scientists are just baffled and terrified. Like, are the explorers dying? Are they being eaten by something out there? Does the transformation just drive them insane?
They have no idea. So the commander of the Jupiter station, a man named Kent Fowler, realizes that he cannot order another person to their presumed death.
Right, he has to do it himself.
He decides he has to undergo the transformation to solve the mystery. So he and his aging, faithful dog, Towser, both undergo the pantropic process.
Towser the dog goes too.
Towser goes too. They are physically remade into lopers and expelled from the safety of the dome into the crushing, corrosive atmosphere of Jupiter.
And what happens next is, I think, one of the most mind-blowing paradigm shifts in all of science fiction.
It really is.
Because the big reveal isn't that they are being killed by native monsters. When Fowler and his dog transform, their consciousness is suddenly filtered through the biological hardware of the loper. And they discover that to a Loper, Jupiter isn't a hellscape at all.
Not even close.
It is an absolute, overwhelming paradise.
The sensory apparatus of the Loper is so profoundly advanced, so deeply attuned to the universe, that it makes human perception seem basically infantile.
Like we're basically blind.
Essentially, yes. They can perceive spectrums of light and energy that humans can't even theorize. The crushing gravity that would turn a human to paste, it feels like a gentle embrace to them.
Wow.
The ammonia storms are symphonies of sensation, but the most devastating realization is cognitive.
The brain power.
Exactly. The Loper brain is vastly superior. Fowler suddenly understands complex universal truths instantly. The text explicitly states that Fowler realizes his former human brain was poorly equipped for thinking.
Poorly equipped for thinking. Imagine that. Like, imagine you spent your entire life locked in a dark closet, watching a blurry, black and white, static-filled television from the 1950s through a dirty window.
That's a great analogy.
Right. And you think that box is the entirety of reality. You build your whole philosophy around it. Then suddenly, someone rips you out of the closet and plugs your brain into a fully immersive 8K, full-sensory virtual reality.
Where you can see infrared and taste colors.
Exactly. You can process high-level calculus instinctively. If you experience that true, expanded reality, why would you ever, under any circumstances, choose to go back to the blurry black and white TV?
You wouldn't.
Why would you willingly lobotomize yourself to become human again?
The prospect of reverting to the severe limitations of humanity is framed in the story as a fate worse than death.
Truly.
It is a profound, humiliating realization of our own biological inadequacy. The story posits that humanity is fundamentally the moron of the universe.
The moron of the universe. Ouch.
We strut around believing we are the pinnacle of evolution, but we are actually sensory-deprived, cognitively stunted creatures just stumbling in the dark.
And the dynamic between Fowler and his dog, Towser, adds this whole other layer of heartbreak and beauty to this moment.
Oh, the Towser dynamic is so important.
Because in human form, Towser is just a loyal, aging animal. He's a pet. But transformed into a Loper, Towser is a highly intelligent, fully communicative equal. He is a peer.
He can talk to Fowler.
Yes. If Fowler decides to return to the human dome, he isn't just lobotomizing himself. He is forcing his best friend back into the silent, dim existence of a dumb animal.
They both agree they cannot go back. The paradise they have found, the clarity of thought, is just too precious to give up.
But wait, Fowler does return. Eventually.
He does?
He forces himself to go back to the dome, to revert to that cramped, limited human brain.
Why?
Why? I mean, if it's such agony to be human again, why not just disappear into the ammonia storms with Towser?
He returns purely out of a deeply ingrained sense of duty. Yeah. Fowler is a product of human civilization, and despite all its flaws, it instilled in him a responsibility to his species. He realizes that the rest of humanity is trapped in that dark closet you mentioned, completely unaware of the paradise right outside their door.
He has to tell them.
He subjects himself to the absolute torture of reverting to humanity solely to tell them the truth.
And that truth changes everything. He brings the story of the Loper paradise back to Earth. And when humanity is presented with this reality, they face an ultimate choice.
The final crossroads.
Right. Continue the slow, isolating decay in their country estates, or abandon their humanity entirely for something better. And the overwhelming majority of the human race chooses transformation.
They literally line up to become Lopers and leave Earth behind.
And this mass exodus is drastically accelerated by the reappearance of Joe the mutant.
Right. Joe comes back into the picture.
What does he do?
Well, Joe shows up and realizes that humanity is struggling to fully comprehend Fowler's story.
Because it's too big to explain.
Because human language is so imprecise, we use clumsy words that fail to convey true meaning or true sensation.
Oh, interesting.
So Joe casually introduces a mind trick.
A mind trick.
He teaches humans how to broadcast meaning directly to one another telepathically, bypassing spoken language entirely.
Just beaming thoughts into each other's heads.
Exactly. Once everyone can perfectly, flawlessly understand the absolute, unvarnished truth of Fowler's experience on Jupiter, the hesitation evaporates completely. The exodus happens almost overnight.
But we have to analyze Joe's role here, because it is deeply, deeply cynical.
Oh, he's not doing it to be nice.
No. He doesn't give humanity telepathy out of a sense of altruism. He does it because the clumsy, noisy process of humans trying to organize an exodus is annoying to him.
It's an annoyance.
Right. It amuses him to simply hand them the key and watch them stampede out the door. It really highlights the profound power imbalance. Humanity's ultimate destiny is facilitated as a casual afterthought by a mutant who barely considers us a species worth noticing.
It's a very humbling exit for the human race.
It is. But let's pause there because I want to look at the nature of this extinction event. It is so incredibly rare in fiction.
It's totally unique.
Like, the world doesn't end in nuclear fire. There is no desperate last stand against alien invaders. It ends in an orderly, voluntary line at the Pantropy clinics.
It's a quiet, almost poetic abdication.
Yes, we didn't blow ourselves up. We just found a better offer and we took it.
It forces a fascinating philosophical debate, honestly.
Is it a tragedy?
Exactly. From a traditional narrative standpoint, the end of the human race is the ultimate failure, right?
Game over.
But the text frames it as an evolution. We finally found a way to escape our own flawed, anxious, aggressive, limited biology. We stopped trying to conquer the universe and simply joined it.
I think it's a happy ending for the individuals who transformed, but a tragedy for the concept of humanity.
Because of what we leave behind.
Yes, because what we leave behind is a mess. With the apex predator suddenly vacated the premises, Earth is left wide open.
The humans traded their bodies for ammonia-breathing paradise, leaving the planet to whoever was waiting in the wings.
Which brings us to the era of the canine civilization, the world after man.
Book 3.
Thousands of years pass. The Earth is entirely changed, but humanity isn't completely extinct on a planet, are they?
Not completely, no. A tiny, tiny remnant, just a few thousand individuals who refused or were unable to make the trip to Jupiter remains behind, and they're living in a place called Geneva.
Geneva. And Geneva is fascinating because it is the ultimate final manifestation of the huddling place.
The logical conclusion of it.
Right. They didn't just build a self-sufficient country house. They built a perfectly sealed, technologically automated, physically impenetrable city for a few thousand people.
They have completely removed themselves from the biosphere.
They are essentially a living museum exhibit of human history, just suspended in stasis. But a descendant of the Webster line,
It's always a Webster.
always, John Webster, decides he needs to see what has happened to the world outside the sealed walls of Geneva. So he ventures out into an Earth that has been free of human dominance for millennia.
And what he finds is astonishing.
Yeah, he finds that the dogs, the descendants of the genetically boosted dog, Nathaniel, have inherited the Earth.
And they haven't just survived.
No.
They have flourished in a way humans never managed. They have built a sprawling, highly advanced, and deeply, fundamentally pacifist civilization.
And the contrast between human history and canine history is so stark.
Light and day.
The dogs don't build weapons, they don't engage in war, they use their high intelligence to actively domesticate and uplift other animal species, attempting to bring the entire biosphere into a state of harmony.
They're basically running a planetary utopia.
Right, they're even engaged in advanced metaphysical research, actively exploring other dimensions of reality.
It's incredible progress.
John Webster observes this beautiful, peaceful, thriving society, and he comes to a crushing realization.
What does he realize?
He realizes that the mere existence of humans, even just a few thousand of them locked in a city, poses an existential, fatal threat to the dogs.
Just by being human.
Yes, he understands that humans are inherently aggressive, inherently disruptive, and genetically hardwired to dominate.
He recognizes the human flaw.
Exactly. If humans and dogs ever truly interact, the humans will not be able to help themselves. They will manipulate, they will assert control, and they will inevitably introduce violence and corruption into this pristine society.
The human virus would destroy the canine host.
That's exactly it. So John Webster takes an incredibly drastic, irreversible action. He returns to Geneva. He sabotages the locking mechanisms. He permanently, physically seals the city off from the outside world, ensuring that no human can ever leave it again.
Wow.
And then he and the rest of the population enter suspended animation. To me, this is one of the most powerful moments in the entire chronology.
It's an incredible sacrifice.
It reminds me of a deeply toxic parent who finally, after years of causing damage, goes to therapy, has a massive breakthrough, and realizes, oh my God, I am the poison in this dynamic.
That's a really good way to frame it.
They realize the only way their children will ever heal and thrive is if the parent completely removes themselves from their lives. John Webster hands over the keys to the planet and locks humanity in the basement so the dogs can live.
It is an act of intense, painful self-awareness. It is the literal manifestation of passing the torch. Humanity, represented by Webster, finally accepts its inherent inability to coexist peacefully with anything else.
We just can't do it.
Right. The only way to allow a superior moral society to flourish is voluntary quarantine.
Meanwhile, out in the world, the dog's making massive strides. Through their research, they discover other dimensional beings that they call the Cobblies.
The Cobblies. This introduces the concept of the multiverse into the chronology.
Right.
The Cobblies are entities occupying parallel spatial dimensions right alongside Earth. And here, Jenkins,
The robot.
the immortal robot servant who has been quietly watching over the dogs for millennia, he plays a crucial role here.
How does he fit in?
Well, Jenkins has evolved. His artificial mind, after thousands of years of processing data, gains a form of telepathy. He manages to read the mind of a Cobbly and actually learns the mathematical and physical secrets of dimensional travel.
He learns how to jump dimensions,
Exactly.
which is a tool that becomes vitally important because the dog's utopian society is about to hit a massive ideological wall.
A huge crisis.
The dogs are governed by strict, unbreakable, almost religious rules called the canons.
The canons.
And the absolute core of these canons is a total, uncompromising prohibition against killing any life whatsoever.
Yeah.
There is no murder, there is no hunting, there is no meat consumption.
They're absolute pacifists.
Absolute. But this extreme pacifism creates a severe crisis. Because they refuse to kill, and because they're actively uplifting other animal species and removing natural predators, they face an overwhelming overpopulation problem.
They broke the food chain.
They entirely dismantled it. The biosphere is bursting at the seams. And worse, a true physical threat emerges. A highly aggressive, dangerous Cobbly manages to cross over from its dimension into theirs and begins wreaking havoc.
So now they have a monster on their hands.
Right. And honestly, I have to challenge the premise of the dog society here. I mean, it sounds incredibly noble and beautiful in a philosophical vacuum.
Sure.
But practically speaking, can a civilization actually survive if it utterly, fundamentally refuses to defend itself with violence, even when faced with a lethal external threat?
It's the paradox of tolerance.
It feels incredibly naive. If a multidimensional monster is tearing through your peaceful villages, you can't just quote pacifist philosophy at it.
Right.
At some point, survival requires teeth.
I see the pragmatism in your argument, but you are applying human evolutionary logic to a post-human society.
Fair enough.
This is the central moral test of the entire chronology. The dogs represent a true evolution beyond humanity's capacity for violence. For them, violence isn't a tool of last resort, it is a spiritual infection.
Interesting.
The story forces the reader to consider the extreme tension between holding pure, unshakable core values and the ugly, pragmatic need for biological survival.
But if they let the Cobbly destroy them, their pure morals die with them. It's the classic dilemma. If you kill a killer, the number of killers in the room remains the same. But if you don't kill the killer wipes out the entire room of pacifists.
It's an impossible situation.
Doesn't adopting human violence to survive just mean the dogs become the new humans?
Precisely. That is the exact fear. If they resort to murder to save their civilization, they have already lost the thing that made their civilization worth saving in the first place.
Have they lost their soul to save their bodies?
Yes, they agonize over this. They are a society desperate to maintain its ideological purity, while the physical reality of the universe demands blood.
And while they are paralyzing themselves with this high-minded moral debate, a much older, much more insidious threat is quietly, relentlessly taking over the entire planet right beneath their paws.
The consequences of the past.
The sins of the human past have finally caught up with them.
We enter the final act, the era of the final rejection.
Final rejection.
Thousands of years later again, Jenkins the robot, who had been absent for a while, returns to Earth. And what he finds is absolute horror.
Ants.
The ants.
The intelligent ant civilization that Joe the Mutant created as a casual backyard game thousands of years ago?
Yes. While the dogs were debating philosophy and dimensions, the ants were doing what ants do.
Expanding.
They were building, expanding, and optimizing. They are not constrained by pacifism, morality, or individualism. They have evolved into a massive, highly efficient, heavily industrialized hive mind.
And they are just eating the world.
They are stripping the planet of resources, expanding an unstoppable mechanical city of metal and earth, and just completely displacing the dogs and the animals. They are a force of nature completely devoid of empathy.
Jenkins is desperate. He loves the dogs. He sees this beautiful pacifist society about to be bulldozed by an endless tide of amoral industrial insects, and he doesn't know how to stop them.
So he goes to the only source of brutal pragmatism he knows.
He travels back to the sealed city of Geneva. He bypasses the millennia-old security locks, goes deep into the silent, dusty city, and wakes John Webster from his suspended animation.
It's an act of pure desperation.
Jenkins begs his old human master, basically the representative of the old gods of Earth, for advice on how to stop the ants.
And John Webster's response is incredibly telling.
Oh, it's brutal. John Webster wakes up, shakes off thousands of years of sleep, listens to the problem of the expanding ant empire, and gives his answer immediately, without hesitation.
What does he say?
His solution: poison them. Manufacture a massive, sweeping chemical agent and wipe the entire ant civilization off the face of the planet. Just kill them all. It is, as the story title suggests, a simple way.
A simple way.
Jenkins' reaction to this is heartbreaking because his artificial mind processes the sheer brutality of that answer,
He suddenly remembers what humans are actually like.
right? He knows the dogs. He knows the cannons. He knows with absolute certainty that the pacifist dogs would never, ever accept mass murder, literal planetary genocide as a solution to a problem, even an existential one.
So Jenkins faces an impossible choice here.
Does he give the dogs the weapon that will save their lives but destroy their souls?
Right.
He decides he cannot. He puts John Webster back to sleep, essentially burying human nature forever. He returns to the dogs, and he lies to them.
He lies to save them.
He tells them that the legendary mythical humans, the Websters, had no answer for the ant problem.
He acts as the final shield, protecting the pure ideology of the dogs from the toxic, brutal pragmatism of human nature.
And the dogs, faced with the unstoppable tide of the ants and remaining absolutely true to their canons, refuse to fight.
They don't compromise.
They refuse to invent poison. They refuse to commit violence. Instead, they utilize the dimensional travel technology that Jenkins learned from the Cobblies.
And they simply leave.
They cross over into another dimension, abandoning Earth entirely rather than committing the violence necessary to keep it.
Wow.
I really want to unpack the sheer weight of this ending, because the realization here is just devastating. Humanity is the proverbial hammer, and to us, every single problem in the universe is just a nail waiting to be smashed.
Overpopulation, smash it. An ant invasion, smash it with poison.
We entirely lack the imagination or the moral fortitude to conceive of a solution that doesn't involve absolute destruction.
This is CMAC's ultimate damning verdict on the human race. The aggressive, destructive, simple way is our hardwired, inescapable default setting.
And the dogs passed the test we failed.
Exactly. The dogs, by choosing exile over violence, definitively prove their moral superiority. They pass the grand test. But the profound, tragic irony of the text is that in passing the moral test, they lose the physical world.
They lose Earth.
The ants, this massive, amoral, unfeeling hive mind, become the undisputed dominant force on Earth. It suggests that the struggle for dominance isn't a moral arc bending toward justice. It is an eternal, grinding cycle of resource consumption.
The pacifists leave, and the ruthless inherit the Earth.
It is incredibly bleak.
Which leads us to the epilogue. And I have to say, this might be one of the most haunting, visceral sequences I have ever read in science fiction.
It really sticks with you.
It's set an untold number of millennia later. Jenkins is completely, utterly alone on Earth. The humans are still asleep in their sealed tomb in Geneva. The dogs are thriving in some unreachable other dimension.
And the ants.
Eventually, Jenkins realizes something profound about the massive world-spanning ant city. It's completely silent. It's dead.
The ants, operating purely on logic and expansion, simply ran out of resources.
Or maybe their hive mind just reached a terminal, stagnant conclusion.
Either way, the eternal cycle of the ants ended not in war, but in quiet exhaustion. The Earth is just an empty, dead monument.
And into this dead world, a spaceship arrives from the stars. It's piloted by robots, the advanced descendants of artificial intelligences who left Earth thousands of years ago to find their own destiny in the cosmos.
They come back.
They find Jenkins, this lonely, immortal sentinel just rusting away on a dead world, and they invite him to join them, to leave Earth behind forever and work on building new societies in the stars.
And Jenkins accepts.
He does. His watch has ended. There's nothing left to protect. But before he boards the ship and leaves Earth forever, he feels a compulsion to do one last thing.
He has to see.
He breaks through the outer, hardened wall of the dead ant city. He wants to see what the ants were actually doing all those thousands of years inside their sealed hive.
And what he finds is...
What he finds inside chilled me to the bone. Because it wasn't advanced machinery or libraries or complex biology. He walks through the endless dusty corridors, and he finds a sculpture,
A single piece of art.
perfectly reproduced and infinitely repeated, thousands and thousands of times throughout the endless expanse of the hive.
And what is it?
It's a sculpture of a human boot, violently kicking over an anthill.
It is a breathtakingly powerful, horrifying symbol.
It really is.
You have to really think about what that represents. The ants, despite all their intelligence and thousands of years of civilization, immortalized the one interaction they fundamentally understood about their creators, the humans.
Right.
They didn't build statues to human art or human love or human philosophy or even human science. They immortalized the casual, amoral destructiveness.
Violence.
The boot kicking the anthill is a direct historical reference to the actions of the mutant Jero playing in his backyard, but it stands in as the ultimate avatar for the entire human species. The ants built a final, enduring monument to the human flaw, the casual, thoughtless violence of the strong against the weak.
It's just staggering. Think about all of human history.
Oh.
All our struggles, our art, our music, our laws, our desperate attempts to be meaningful.
And that's what's left.
And our only lasting physical legacy on the planet, recorded by the species that outlived us, is an act of petty, bullying destruction. It's a monument to the bully. Is the ultimate humiliation of the human ego.
It is a harsh mirror to look into.
Yeah.
Yet the story doesn't end in complete nihilistic despair.
It doesn't.
No, because Jenkins turns his back on that dead city, boards the ship, and his journey continues. He joins the other robots and heads out into a new universe.
Oh, okay. I see.
The title of the book, City, ultimately refers not to a physical place made of steel, glass, or ant-built concrete. It refers to the construct of memory.
A city of stories.
Exactly. It is a set of stories, myths, and ideas that manage to outlive their flawed biological creators. Jenkins carries the memory of the city of humanity and the nobility of the dogs out into the stars. The physical world died, but the narrative survived.
Let's fall back and do a quick synthesis here.
Mm.
Looking at this text from a modern perspective, written in the 1940s, it's fascinating to see what Simak got right and what he got wildly wrong about the future trajectory of humanity.
Scientifically, it is certainly a mixed bag.
For sure.
He was incredibly prescient about the mechanics of hydroponic farming, though.
Oh, definitely.
That is a massive, vital, real-world industry today that is actively reshaping agriculture. And his concept of boosting dogs is a shockingly accurate conceptual precursor to the modern fields of genetic engineering and CRISPR technology.
Yeah, he foresaw our ability to manipulate DNA long before the double helix was even fully understood.
He was way ahead of his time there.
But on the flip side, his central demographic prediction, the complete abandonment of cities for decentralized country living, couldn't have been more wrong.
He missed the mark on that one completely.
The cities didn't empty out, they exploded. Mass urbanization is the defining demographic trend of the late 20th and early 21st centuries. We didn't run away from each other. We crammed ourselves closer together.
Which brings its own set of problems.
True. Also, the depiction of Jupiter having a solid surface is fundamentally incorrect. And while we have advanced AI today, we are nowhere near the self-aware, emotionally complex, loyal robotics of Jenkins.
It is pretty amusing how a writer can perfectly predict the intricacies of hydroponic agriculture, but completely misread the psychological trajectory of global urbanization.
Right.
But we have to remember the true purpose of science fiction, especially sociological, philosophical science fiction like this.
It's not a prophecy.
Exactly. It isn't a crystal ball meant to predict the future with perfect accuracy. It is a laboratory. It is about projecting human nature, our fears, our flaws, our ideals, into new, extreme, speculative circumstances to see how it bends, breaks, or adapts.
It's a stress test for humanity.
Precisely. The fact that Jupiter is a gas giant doesn't diminish the timeless philosophical depth of the Pantropy sequence. That story is about the painful limitations of human perception and our terror of the unknown, not planetary geology.
The core of it holds up.
The emotional resonance, the questions it asks about who we are, remain flawlessly intact.
The emotional resonance is exactly what sticks with you. And what an emotional journey this is.
It really is a journey.
We've traced humanity from the fear-driven paranoid isolation of the huddling place to the breathtaking, voluntary surrender of our physical bodies on the shores of Jupiter to the tragic realization that we are too fundamentally violent to live alongside a peaceful civilization.
And ending with the ants.
Ending with that haunting, infinitely repeated statue of a boot kicking an anthill in the dark. It challenges everything I thought I knew about what it means to be a successful species.
It is a masterpiece of speculative fiction precisely because it forces us to confront the darkest, most indelible parts of our nature while still offering a glimmer of hope that something better, something purer might follow us.
Even if we aren't around to see it.
Right. Even if we aren't around. And that brings up a final lingering thought for you to consider, based deeply on the text's central theme of storytelling, legacy, and memory.
I'm ready. What is it?
Well, if the city is ultimately just a set of stories, a mythology that survived long after the physical humanity vanished and the concrete crumbled, it begs a profound question about our present daily reality.
Okay.
We walk around so sure of ourselves, but what if our entire concept of being human, our dominance over nature, the immense self-importance of our massive cities, our perceived centrality in the grand narrative of the universe, what if all of that is just a story we are currently telling ourselves to feel safe in the dark?
Oh, wow.
And like all stories, it has a final chapter just waiting to be read. So what story are you writing with your life today and your interactions and your footprint on the world, knowing that eventually, absolutely all the buildings will crumble and only the myth will remain?
That's a heavy question.
When the final historian of Earth looks back at your life, will your myth be the boot kicking the anthill, or will it be something better?
That is a staggering thought to end on. Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible, challenging journey through the canine chronology. Keep exploring, keep questioning everything you assume to be true about your place in the world, and keep digging into the narratives that shape our reality. We'll see you on the next Deep Dive.